Hello and welcome to MyFinanceTeacher on YouTube. Over the last 3 weeks, we've seen a pretty nice rally in gold, and the big question at the moment is whether we have finished the intermediate cycle 3 weeks ago and have entered an advancing phase of a new one, or we have not finished the declining phase of this intermediate cycle that has been going on since early 2017, and in which case we are still going to see price levels possibly sub 1200. Frankly speaking, I'm on the fence about it. I'm not exactly sure if we have finished an intermediate cycle 3 weeks ago, or if we are still in the declining phase of an ongoing intermediate cycle. So in this video we are going to look at arguments supporting both cases. First, we are going to look at the arguments for sub 1200 level prices in gold. Now we have seen a breakout out of this triangle consolidation zone that we've been observing for over a year or more than a year and a half even. However, an argument for sub 1200 level prices is that we have seen minor breakouts in the past before, and after those breakouts, price still returned back into this consolidation zone. So this might happen again, and there is still a possibility that price is going to go back to this support level or somewhere around that and finish off with this declining phase of an intermediate cycle. That's one of the arguments. Another argument for possibly lower prices in the coming few weeks is usually an intermediate cycle would finish with somewhat oversold RSI levels. This is a 10-week RSI, and we have not seen these oversold levels yet, which means price still might continue down, bringing the RSI levels to oversold and creating this possibility for stronger bounce upwards in the future after that. Another argument for possibly lower gold prices over the next few weeks is what has been happening to the dollar index. In front of you is a weekly chart of dollar index, and the intermediate cycle in dollar has been going on for extremely long, over a year now, and the 10-week RSI on the dollar index is now oversold. Both of these, the extreme length of this cycle and oversold levels of the RSI, mean that this cycle might finish at any moment and we might enter a new one into its advancing phase. And if dollar is going to get stronger, that is going to pressure gold downward. Now let's have a look at arguments for considerably higher gold prices. There is a possibility that this has been a cycle low of this intermediate cycle starting in late 2016, early 2017. And although the 10-week RSI level has not reached oversold levels 3 weeks ago, it was close enough. So it is still possible that we are in the advancing phase of a new intermediate cycle, in which case we might see a minor pullback over the next week or two as we are approaching some resistance level at these current prices, and a continuation of this short-term cycle probably to a stronger resistance level at about 1310, after which we might see a pullback and a finish of this shorter term cycle at probably similar prices to where we are, since this resistance level is also the support. After that, the second short-term cycle in that new intermediate cycle will start, bringing the prices much further, much higher. Besides the RSI levels, which has been relatively close to oversold, another argument for considerably higher gold prices is that the last short-term cycle has created a lower low, and for an intermediate cycle, for a medium-term cycle to finish, we generally need a shorter-term cycle to create a lower low. That is part of the downward phase of an intermediate cycle. Although this recent low is not considerably lower than the previous one, it is technically a lower low, and it might have been enough for this intermediate cycle to have finished. And again, we might be in the advancing phase of a new intermediate cycle. And again, what is happening in dollar might even argue for a new intermediate cycle in gold. As I've mentioned, this intermediate cycle in the dollar index has been going on for extremely long, and we've reached a level in the dollar index where we are close to the previous low of this intermediate cycle. So there is a possibility that dollar continues down until it creates a lower low, since we have passed many of the relevant Fibonacci levels, such as the 38, 50%, 62% Fibonacci levels. There is not much support for dollar index around here until it reaches the previous low. And of course, if dollar is going to continue downwards to make a lower low, then that is going to help gold move up over the next couple of weeks. And the dollar might continue going down over the next several weeks, even though this cycle has been overstretched already, even though we are oversold on the 10-week RSI, because we might go even more extremely oversold, as it happened on the other side. We were extremely overbought in early 2015, when dollar was rallying like crazy. So again, if dollar continues a similar crazy decline this time, creating a lower low, then that might push gold somewhat further higher. So in summary, as I have mentioned, at the moment I'm not exactly certain whether gold is going to come down to sub 1200 level prices and then start a new intermediate cycle, or gold is already in an advancing phase of an intermediate cycle, will continue probably higher for another week or 2 or 3, then have a pullback as this short-term intermediate cycle finishes, after which we'll enter a second short-term intermediate cycle in gold. So I hope next week will give us some clues over what's going to happen in gold, and if you have some ideas about it, I would be interested to read about them in the comments to this video. Thank you for your attention.